I lived in Darjeeling, India for a year. Actually, I lived for 2 years in India, but 1 year in Darjeeling. And there's a lot of Tibetan Buddhist communities there. And when I used to go to these temples, like they would be chanting there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then these little kids would run around and the monks or the nuns would be laughing and then would slamming these music instruments, and it was a fun, there was a lightness about it. At the same time, they were really serious about their spiritual practice, but there was a lightness about it. And it's that lightness of being when we are not worried or angry. And that for me is also, the way of Reiki, the inner teachings of Mikasui, who is the founder of the system of Reiki. I'm writing about in my book, don't take it too serious. Be in your life, be joyful, be playful. For me is already healing, right?
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. Today we are going to be talking to Frans Stiene about his new book, The Way of Reiki, from his home in Amsterdam. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself. There's a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. As I said, we are journeying over to Amsterdam today to talk with Frans Stiene. Frans has been a major influence on global research into the system of Reiki since the early 2000s. His practical understanding of the Japanese influence on the system has allowed students worldwide to connect deeply with this practice. This is a great talk today because what I didn't know was going to happen was a lot of laughs. And we get into talking about spiritual matters and how there's many times a lack of humor within people that are pursuing certain spiritual disciplines. And Frans has really come to the place in his own spiritual study where laughter is an extremely important part of the cosmic joke that we all live. But there's also some various serious spiritual practices. And so we're going to learn about the system of Reiki, how it was started, how it is manifested in his life. He talks about his book and his teaching. And this was a super enjoyable interview. So please welcome Frans Stiene. Good morning, Frans. And I know, well, not where you are. You're in Amsterdam, and it's 7 p.m., and I'm at 10 a.m. here in Los Angeles. So you're heading into the night, and I'm heading into the day, but that doesn't mean we can't have a great discussion.
That's it. It's all good, Bob.
Yeah, and you're teaching over there, and we're going to be talking about your new book, The Way of Reiki, among other things. Let me just start with this. My experience just with the word Reiki is only in body work. That's the only part of it that I know when people say, I did a Reiki massage. I got some Reiki body work. But I know there's much more to it than that. And are those two separate things from the spiritual practice? Or is it, because sometimes words are used two different ways. So I'm going to let you go on this one.
Yeah, it's a really good question. For me, when I first learned the system of Reiki, it was very much taught as like some body work, you do it on someone. And I was not really satisfied with it in a way. I was like, there must be more to it. It doesn't make any sense. So I kept training with different people. And then originally the system of Reiki comes from Japan. So then I went to Japan and trained with Japanese people, and still I wasn't really satisfied. And because I think if we want to help someone, even with energy or body healing, then we first need to make sure that we are in the right state of mind, right? In mind, body, energy. And so finally in 2012, I started to train with a Japanese priest in Japan. And that really changed my whole viewpoint of the system of Reiki and how it works and really what it is all about. And it's a little bit like now how we see yoga. You know, you look on Instagram and yoga now has become almost like acrobatics. But we all know traditionally it was a spiritual practice for awakening. But yeah, sometimes now that we see that very differently. So now if we say Reiki, we think it's hands-on healing or a massage or body work. But traditionally it was a spiritual practice to actually, in simple terms, as they say within the system of Reiki, is to become less angry, less worried, be more grateful, be more true to your way and your being, and be more compassionate to yourself and others.
Well, that is about as great of a way to live as I can imagine. And I love the first one because the first thing you said is become less angry.
Yeah.
That was a big goal of mine. And I've pretty much succeeded in, I've definitely succeeded in becoming less angry. Not to say it's eliminated, because I don't think as a human being you can not get angry sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was something that ruled my existence for a very long time. And I'm telling you, everything got me upset for a long time. I could walk into a room and not care for the lighting and get upset. I don't like fluorescent lights. Who are these people that design them? Why are human beings doing this to themselves? This is making me uncomfortable. I'm taking it as a personal assault. Another day where the world is messing with me, and I don't like it. That was the way I walked around for a long time.
Yeah, I think you're saying that also already, you know, as a personal assault. We see it, you know, it's that really I, and then of course me, and then the whole shit starts in a way. So it's about, for me, that's softening that anger and worry, and that we can take this also in our daily life, you know. And, you know, you were just telling me that you've been a comedian, a stand-up comedian. I think this is so wonderful, because I see sometimes when we start to practice spirituality, we become a little bit too serious, and we go like, okay, now we need to all be holy and everything needs to be more spiritual than the next thing. But for me, actually, it's becoming more natural. It's in a natural way, infusing it into our society and all we do.
You know, when I think about spirituality or a way of being, and if there is this force that animates us, let's say, we'll call it whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want. I'll just say the animating force, the energy of the universe. I believe, and I feel this, and whether it's intellectual or something bigger, which I think it is, not just intellectual, I think there's a big laughter about the whole thing. I think so too. There's a big absurdity, and you know, it's if you have light, you got to have dark in order for light to exist. They don't exclude each other; they complement. And so, laughter is, to me, you know, a huge piece of what my life is about, because you know why? I feel good when I laugh. And I feel good when other people laugh. And when we laugh together, it's even more. Yeah. So how could that be not something that's important? Because it just feels great.
I was talking to a friend of mine who works with John Cleese, you know, the great comedian.
Oh, yeah, sure. Monty Python. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so he was saying that John always wanted to impart some message into his audience. And he said the best way John feels is that to make them laugh, because then we're more open, and therefore then we can really work with that energy. And I think for me is I lived in Darjeeling, India for a year. I actually lived for 2 years in India, but 1 year in Darjeeling, and there's a lot of Tibetan Buddhist communities there. And when I used to go to these temples, like they would be chanting there at 6 a.m. in the morning, like, and then these little kids would run around, and the monks or the nuns would be laughing, and then it would slamming these music instruments, and it was a fun, it was a lightness about it. At the same time, they were really serious about their spiritual practice, but there was a lightness about it. And it's that lightness of being when we are not worried or angry. And that for me is also, the way of Reiki, the inner teachings of Mikasui, who is the founder of the system of Reiki. I'm writing about in my book, don't take it too serious. Be in your life, be joyful, be playful. For me is already healing, right?
I love that image of, a temple where people are chanting and the kids are running around and playing, people are laughing. Because it's not portrayed that way, certainly in movies. It's all this kind of, super serious stuff, and why do we tend as people to eliminate certain aspects of who we really are, with laughter being in this case, to make the thing seem more important? Why do we think that? It's like,
well, I spoke to someone today, and we were talking about that being embodiment of a spiritual practice. It means right in our body right now. And, this body likes to laugh or likes to have sex or do other things. And doesn't mean we do it in excess or whatever. But for me, is that heaven on earth, is not somewhere. That spirituality is not when we sit on a pillow and we zone out, but actually, because that zoning out, I cannot take with me when I go to a cafe or when I talk to people, when I drive my car. So I need to learn how to embody that spirituality in my daily life, in all I do. And for me, that is the most essential thing. Sitting on a pillow is easy, but integrating it into our daily life where all the crazy shit really is happening, that is really the difficult part.
Yeah, it really is. It's easy to be spiritual on the top of the mountain when you walk down into the village and deal with real people. That's the there's a movie, I can't think of the name of it, but it was a guy who went and lived with the bears up in Alaska or someplace.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
I can't think of it. And he stayed too long and he got eaten, but that's not that's not the point of it that I'm going to make. I mean, it is a point to make. Don't stay too long. Don't wear out your welcome. But there was a interview with one of the park rangers in the summer, and he was talking about this guy and what he had done. And the shot is a close-up on this guy, and he's covered in bugs, gnats, flying insects. They're all over him. And he doesn't react to it at all. He's so used to being around it that he's covered. It's just like I would be going crazy because I'm not used to it. And I thought, boy, that is the message. Just to look at that guy's face, and he's fine. He's just who he is, and he's covered in annoyance. Let's talk about the meditation practice in Reiki and how it's similar or different to some of the other religions or disciplines that are out there.
Well, within the system of Reiki, you have breath meditation practices, so where you focus on the breath, breathe, just really like very similar to a lot of these other practices. Then you have chanting practices where you chant very specific mantras to facilitate your concentration and facilitate that vibration within your body. I always see it a bit like this: when a car drives on the road or like this, then things loosen up in the car. That's why we need to bring it to a garage, right? After a while, we have to tighten all the nuts and bolts again. And when we do the vibration, or when we're chanting, we feel that vibration if we practice correctly. And that loosens all that stuff what we hold on to, like attachments, worry, fears, stuff what has been said 10 years ago or 50 years ago. So we do those kind of practices. Then, of course, there's also hands-on healing, what you do on yourself, or you can work on someone else. On someone else, of course, first of all, comes again for yourself. I always say I cannot give you water if I don't have water. It's impossible. I cannot give you love if I can't find that love within myself. So the first point of call of helping other people is really first your own personal practice. Then there is also something what is called like an initiation. In Japanese, it's called a reiju. And if you translate it, it means like a spiritual blessing. And then there's also certain precepts. And the precepts, for example, is, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, be true to your way and your being, and show compassion to yourself and others.
I was thinking, how does a guy who's Dutch wind up studying this in Japan? What was I got to know a little bit about your childhood and what made you become someone who was seeking a way to live that was an improvement over probably the way that you were raised.
Yeah, I had I was, Bob, I was a party animal. I drank way too much up to my 30s. I was definitely not interested into any kind of spirituality. And when I was 16, I started to have back problems. So they put me into plaster from here to my hips for a while. And I would pick up like a little fluffy thing from the floor and I could not get up. So then I had to get physiotherapy. Then I had to get really strong painkillers. Then I thought, well, if I take the painkillers with the alcohol, then it would even be better. Of course not. That was stupid.
Well, it's stronger. It definitely. I guess that could be conceived as better.
Yeah, it depends what you want to achieve.
Yeah, if you're going for oblivion, yes, it's better.
That's true. I probably was definitely in some oblivion states for a while. Luckily, I didn't ride my bike in the canals here in Holland, but it was close. So then we decided to actually move to or travel around. We would give up everything and travel around Asia for a while. And when I left, I did Holland to go to Asia, and we decided to first go to India. I didn't leave Holland in a very healthy physical state and in a mental state. When we arrived in India, we went up straight to the north of India, and we went to a place called Ladakh. And Ladakh is in the Himalaya, absolutely stunning. They call it like Little Tibet. It's amazing. Beautiful turquoise rivers, monasteries would hang on the side of cliffs. And there I am with a pain in my back, and I'm laying in bed because I can't get up. And my partner at that time sees sightseeing, and I go like, this is a bit ridiculous. I'm 30. I can't get out of bed. I feel really fucked up in my head. And at that time, I didn't realize it, but now when I look back, I made a decision then, and I kind of clearly remember it, to say, I have to do something for myself, because if I don't, it's not going to end up well. So the next day I met with someone, and we were having lunch, and I was talking about my back problem, and she was a massage therapist or something. I can't even remember. And I was having a beer, and she goes, "Why are you drinking then?" I said, "Well, why not? Right? That's a stupid question at that time." And she goes, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Well, it's really bad for your back because of blah, blah, blah." And I go, "Okay, I quit." So I quit right there and then. Really, it was quite amazing. I don't know. I think it was just the right time at the right moment. And then we met an American guy, Curtis, I still remember. And he said, "Okay, there is a local lady going to do some healing. Do you want to guys come?" So we went with 5 foreigners, and it was in a very small room. It was packed with locals, and it was very dark, and we were not allowed to participate. We were sitting at the back with 5 foreigners, and we were allowed to watch. And this lady is going into trance. She's chanting, and one by one, she's calling these local people forward, and she either touches them, or she has a little stick where she sucks out some gooey stuff, or she talks to them. And so it's kind of finished, and she's standing there, and she says something, and it's been translated, and said, "Oh, one of the foreigners have to come, and you come." And I go, "Okay." So I come to the fore to her, and I point towards my back, and she touches me, and I'm gone. I mean, I'm still getting goosebumps from it. I'm gone. I don't know what happened. I'm crying. I feel heat from my crown to my toes. The spaciousness is like so vast. If you would ask me, was it 1 second, 1 minute, 1 day, or 10 days, I would have said, could have been any of these. And then I sat back, and they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I have no idea what just happened. I don't know. I don't know what happened," right? It was just like someone has switched on this light somewhere within me. And of course, she didn't have switched it on. It was there already in the first place. And then the next day, not necessarily that my back was better or I felt straight away a mental better, but all I wanted to do was read books on spirituality. And that really was not me, right? I wanted to party. That was it. So I started to buy these books on yoga, on Buddhism, on Ayurvedic healing. And one day I came across a Reiki book. I said, "Well, this is interesting." And it had pictures on hands-on healing on yourself. And that was the beginning.
Damn, what a story.
So yeah, it was a really interesting story in a way. It's yeah.
Well, just the fact that somebody who was the way you were went to a place like that without even knowing that that was going to happen. It's almost like you were guided there somehow. Like, why did you pick the Himalayas of all the places you could have went to, the Riviera?
I mean, now I might choose that.
But I mean, you go, "Hey, let's go to the Himalayas." I mean, most people don't usually say that. It's not. It's well, and then there you are with this, yeah. And then you meet these people that take you to this place, and this event happens. Wow, that's incredible.
I must say, Bob, if I look back on my life, I've been very fortunate to have met real, like, I trained with a Taoist priestess for many years who was brought up in China as a kid in Taoist practices. And she was just amazing. And the priest I'm working with now in Japan, just the people I've met over the years, I sometimes ask myself, and like, how am I so lucky? Or how does this even eventuate? Like sometimes, as you say, sometimes am I being steered in these directions, or is it just happening, or karma, or who knows? Yeah.
Well, have you ever had the experience that you've been here before?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And what were some of those? Because I've had a few myself, so I find that pretty interesting. That we get to do this, over and over again. It seems like.
Yeah, the one, for example, when I went to Darjeeling for the first time, I still remember I was in this Jeep, or rambly Jeep, and we come over the hills. Darjeeling is like 2,000 meters high in the Himalayas, and I felt home. It was like instantly, and that's why I lived there for a year. It was like instantly like, oh, this is home. I've been here before. It just feels so good.
Interesting planet we live on that, we kind of are buzzing around like little insects are all around the planet, but then we find these places and these people that are familiar without having met them or seemingly know them. And it's just, there's obviously more to what's going on than we can see.
Well, I think this is what I think, I think normally, for a while, I thought we all walk around like this, right? And therefore we can't see a lot. And then I had certain experience, and I thought, no, we're not walking around like this. We walk around like this, right?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to tell the audience, first it was blinders that he used for his hands, and then he covered his eyes.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, you know, and I go like, what the hell? This is just crazy.
I remember interviewing a woman that's a hypnotherapist, and her whole thing is I don't really use hypnosis because you're already hypnotized. I unhypnotize you.
Yeah, it is like this, right? Yeah, we have to wake up. Don't hypnotize me.
Yeah.
Please wake me up from the sleep of ignorance.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the wisdom is somewhere in there, and then somehow we come into the world and it gets covered up.
There's a phrase in Japanese, and if you translate it, it means great bright light. And it's really talk about your inner great bright light. And I see it, we just cover it up with these lampshades, and then one day we might even say, my light is not on. What are you talking about, your inner light? I don't find it. I don't have it. But of course, it's still there. It's just covered up by all this shit, what we've accumulated over the years.
I'm going to say something here that I'm a little embarrassed to say it about myself, but there's a part of me when I get too bright, as you're talking about,
yeah,
I have a fear that I'm going to be more alone because people won't understand it or want to be around it. And I don't think I'm alone in that, but there's a part of me that will stop it sometimes, not always, but enough that, tell me what that is. I mean, you were nodding like in a way that you understood what I was saying. And I'm actually a little, it's tough to talk about for me because I can't quite articulate. It's really
hard to talk about. For me, is sometimes really hard because it's like you're walking against most people follow this one direction, and say, everybody just go this direction. And then you go, hang on, that direction doesn't necessarily makes me feel happy or content or well-being. I'm trying the other direction for a change.
Yeah.
And then you go, actually, this makes me feel much better. And then people go like, you're a bit different than the rest, right? So then sometimes you might find that you feel a little bit alone. But this is, I think, good. And this is what I like to create too. And also, therefore, through the writings of all my books, that creating a more global community. And it doesn't have to be big, but for example, I just taught a private class here in Holland, 2 French ladies. They came from Paris. And so they said, but we know other people there. And this community where it's slowly growing, where you can talk to each other, where it's more normal to have certain feelings, or it's okay where we say, okay, let's maybe not drink so much, or it's okay to laugh and not be too serious about the spiritual practice or about life. As you say, it's maybe one big cosmic joke.
Yeah. It's I've always been attracted to people that were something that I didn't feel that I was at the time. I guess I'm more like that now, but people who seemingly are incredibly earnest and sincere and don't follow the crowd, not deliberately. That's just who they are. It's not like a mannered false thing. It's I don't want to do that, so I don't. And I'm always like, wow. And they seem to be many of them seem to be very content with their life and who they are, and they don't like the idea of fitting in doesn't even enter their mind.
I have a couple of different nicknames, and one is like Peter Pan. Some people call me Peter Pan. I said, Frans, you're like 56, but you're still so free. If you want to skip, you skip on the street. You talk to all strangers. You just be free in that way. And I said, for me, is we don't have to be, as long as we're compassionate to ourselves and others, we can talk to all sorts of different people. But often we feel that we have so many layers and we say, oh, I cannot do this, or I'm afraid, or what's going to happen? What if I do this? I had a great example the other day. I was talking to a friend student, and he's saying, Frans, you taught me once a really good lesson. And he said, it was not in a class. He said, we were in Paris. I was teaching in Paris. And he said, it was lunchtime. And we were sitting on the steps of this building. and you went off to do something. He said, and there was a few of us eating a sandwich or whatever they were eating. And he said, there was a beggar close by. And the beggar wanted to our attention. And he said, we were like, oh no, go away. You're a bit smelly and, you're annoying. And he said, in the next moment, I look over and there you are, hugging this beggar and you're laughing with him and you're doing a silly dance. And I go like, shit, I've just been doing a 4-day meditation retreat and I still was not in the place where I could be kind to this beggar and try to chase him away. He said, I really need to change this. And I think for me, that is really bringing that into your daily life, what is so important. But yeah, we have to let go of our worries and our fear and being therefore maybe a little bit different than the rest.
That to me is the beauty of watching kids, because they don't have a lot of that artifice developed yet, and you'll watch them make up phrases and words and dance and move around and stretch in these strange, they're not strange, they just stretch in the ways that their body is telling them. Yeah. And it's really fun to watch. I mean, a kid will just, will just stop where they are if they want to and just lay down on the ground. They don't care. They don't think about anything like that. It's like, oh, that's what I want to do right now. They do it. Yeah.
I mean, this is, I think, why a lot of these spiritual traditions say, be more childlike. I'm following or not following, attending a teaching at the moment from a friend who is a Buddhist teacher, and he was, you have to do a little assignment. And the first time he said, okay, everybody, when you do the assignment, keep it simple, like your 12-year-old, so that everybody can understand it. And I thought, wow, this is it. Like we become so adult, and then we actually want to skip, but we're afraid to do it because then we think, what will other people think? I was just teaching in the UK, and I like to be a little bit after class, particularly when we do energy work and healing and meditation, I feel even more open. So we go for dinner, and in the meantime, we're doing, let's do some circus acts here in the middle of the street. And I don't know, I can't really do anything, but we're just pretending. And, we were all laughing so much. And for me, that was definitely a big part of the class. And not that I planned it in, but through that, everybody starts to feel more open, we're laughing, we give each other hugs, and therefore already we feel less angry, less worried, and therefore that can already then move out more into when we go for dinner, talking to other people in the restaurant, et cetera, et cetera.
When you were telling me you were a party animal, as I was, I'm a failed party animal, let's put it that way. But when I think about why did I want to do that, and it's exactly what you're talking about. I wanted a shortcut to feeling physically, mentally, and spiritually in the moment, at peace, comfortable, okay. And it's the same thing. One requires almost no work and with a big consequence, which is the partying. Yeah. And the other one requires a lot of work and diligence and consistency with more longevity and more depth. But the goal is kind of the same thing. It's to live in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Live now and don't be afraid what people think. And again, for me, the golden rule is, as long as you're compassionate to yourself and other people, kind to yourself and others. And for me, I think that is definitely, therefore, bring your spirituality, no matter what we practice, into your daily life. Is not something outside of ourselves, is right, in embodiment in this body right now. The body is not in yesterday. The body is also not tomorrow. The body is right here in this present moment. And therefore, use it to make people, it doesn't cost much to smile or to say to someone, hey, I like your glasses, or hey, nice shirt, or wow, you look happy today, or you don't look happy today. Can I help you? Is there something you can do for you? It doesn't cost that much.
It's actually, a great, a great set of skills to have, just to every time you meet somebody, is to sincerely pick something out about them that you like and say it out loud. Yeah. Even if you think they know it, just say it. Because I like it. I like it when people say stuff to me like that.
Wow, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's that's your assignment, listeners. Every person you meet today, say something nice.
Well, sometimes it is, Bob. It's like an assignment. We have a choice. I always say, if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, sometimes we people think, oh, let's look in the future and see what's going to happen. We only have to look at today. What seed are we planting today? Are we planting worry or fear or anxiety? Because then that seed will grow and that will manifest either tomorrow or next year. Or are we planting kindness today or love? Then that is what we're getting in the future. So to know the future, we don't have to look in the future. We have to look in the present moment and see what we're planting today.
Yeah, and I think people, when they think about the future, at least I speak for myself, it's not good. It's not positive. It's all fear-based things that are, how am I not going to wind up broken alone? How whatever the fear is, that's usually the two big ones. So it really is about today, I guess, and I'm enjoying today so far.
Yeah, me too. And it is too, Bob. I think if we really, I think for me also, we think often, I live till I'm 80, or the other day, a friend of a friend who was like 45, 46, just dropped dead, from a heart attack. So we don't know when our time comes. So if we say, next year, I'm going to be more spiritual, work on my health or well-being, well, next year never comes. I always make this example of when you go to England. I was just in England at these wonderful old pubs, and like tomorrow free beer, you have these signs, and then you come tomorrow, it's still tomorrow free beer, because tomorrow never arrives. So do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I just got a friend of mine sent me a list of people that have passed away from my high school graduating class, and it was kind of disturbing to read it. Some of those people were, friends of mine. Some of them I know how they passed. Some of them I didn't know at all. But I was just looking at this list, which obviously every year gets longer. I read the list and I go, I'm glad I'm not on this one.
Yeah. And then you realize too that you have to enjoy life. I think one of the things we can ask ourselves, for example, whatever we come in touch with on any given day, does this last forever, or how long does it last? Well, a relationship, does it last forever? No, we don't know. So we know it changes. Does my glass of water last? No, it changes. Does the weather last? No, it changes. Then we start to realize that everything is changing. Nothing really lasts. So therefore, when we start to feel this more within ourselves, then we go like, hang on, I'm just wasting my time here with unhappiness, not being grateful, not being kind. I might as well change that.
Yeah, I had a wonderful experience doing a past life regression in hypnosis. Yeah. Really, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's really a fascinating thing, because, and the thing that I came out of it with was, I had this experience, which I won't go into now. I've done it on another podcast. I've talked about it, but the person took me to my death. And then she goes, okay, we're going to leave your body and go to the next thing. And then when I came out of the hypnosis, you're aware the entire time. It's not like you're in some other place. You're just in a deeper state. And she says to me, isn't it amazing how not a big deal it is to die? And that's exactly the experience I had when I left the one body and one life to go to the next one. And it really was probably the most profound change from that experience, although everything else was really cool. This was a reassurance. And like I was saying, I feel like I've been here before, but that it isn't a big deal. Now, that's not to say if I'm in the hospital next week and they're giving me a bad prognosis, I'm not going to be terrified. I probably would be. But but that being said, that knowledge was really important.
Yeah. I think, if we look at worry, what's the biggest worry is that we die. So I went to Japan and training there, and I do one of these practices called Shugendo. And Shugendo is where you go into the mountains and you stand under ice cold waterfalls. They hang you off cliffs and no safety guard. So they have two people, one on each leg, holding you, and you have to go front with your head to the front over the cliff, and then they do really difficult exercises. I don't think here in Holland they would even allow to do it without any safety guards. And I remember I came to this mountain and we climb up with this priest. You can only go up there by foot. It's 4 or 5 hours, and there's 2-3 little monasteries there. And it's so evening. I don't speak Japanese. So the priest is talking to this other priest of this mountain, and they look a bit worried. And I go like, everything okay? Yeah, a couple of people died. And do you want to sign this form? It's all in Japanese. What does it say? Just that you do this out of free will. And the penny didn't drop, so I just sign it. And then the next day we go and do there's 18 kind of exercises. Some are where you're chanting in a cave. And then you go higher and higher, and then you're hanging off this cliff, and then you walk, and then they make you to do really scary things. And one of the reasons is to get over the fear of death, that softens that idea that any moment we can drop dead, And after being there on this mountaintop for 5 days, I felt so much release of that worry and that fear. I felt so much freer, what's quite amazing.
Man, I don't even like going up 3 steps on a ladder.
No, me neither. So it was pretty. I must tell you about one of these exercises I didn't do. There was the last one. And you come to the top of the mountain. There's this huge boulder. There is a little ridge, what is probably the width of your hand, about that much. And then you have to put your arms wide and hug the boulder, and then with the back into the valley. And it's like a steep drop. I don't know how many, like maybe 200 meter or 100 meter, I don't know. And so the wind is howling, and this teacher, he grabs the rock like that. He hugs the rock and he walks under this little ledge, no clips, no nothing, no safety. And he disappears around a corner, and I'm standing there. My knees are going cluck, 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 cluck. The wind is howling, and I go, man, I can't do this. I'm dead if I do this. And then suddenly I see the teacher's face. Hey, Frans, you okay? I'm not going to do this. But at the same time, it felt very powerful to say that I wasn't ready to do it, Yeah. So, and it was good. And they agree, for them, it's good. Yeah. So that also really, that these journeys in Japan with these kind of teachers, that for me is another reason what came out to write The Way of Reiki.
Let's talk about the book for a minute. Like if somebody picks this book up, The Way of Reiki, and they are going to experience what are you dispensing in terms of wisdom and knowledge and experience in the book?
It's for me a journey into yourself, to laying bare your true self. And I've wrote it really, first of all, for myself. It sounds a bit strange, but this is how I work. I write it because to make my own teachings clear in my own head. And then I go like, oh, here is actually a book. What is great. maybe I should publish it. Mm-hmm. And so it's a journey into, hopefully gives you a taste, some flavor, some ideas. What does it mean to lay bare that great bright light? How can we focus on certain practices and techniques to help us to soften our anger and worry in our daily life, to be a little bit more grateful and kind? So there are some practices in the book. There's some teachings. Of course, it's with anything, is I can read a cookbook, but if I want to eat, I need to make it. I need to buy some food and chop it up and put it in a pot. So a book is great, particularly a spiritual book, gives us some insight, but then we have to find a right teacher who can help us on that way.
Yeah, to have some kind of actual experience is the only way to
Yes.
solidify these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the intellectual side it's nice. It's good to have information, but if you're not using it in some way, it's sort of pointless at that. It's but sometimes you can read things and just it's sort of stored away, and then when you're ready, to do it, you go, oh, now I remember that. I remember reading books when I was a teenager that I didn't get it, and I just was like, this is interesting, and I'm not really don't know how to do this. I'm not going to do it. And then 30 years later, I'm actually understanding it in a way that I can practice it.
26 years ago, I still remember it as it was yesterday. It was fantastic. So in Darjeeling, there's lots of Tibetan Buddhists, and when you live in these little towns, you go to some little cafes that are a little bit more familiar, or restaurants. So there was one or two where a lot of foreigners would go to, and there was also a lot of foreigners practicing Tibetan Buddhism. They had hair shaved, nice robes on, these prayer beads. And when I would go there, they were all, not all, but a lot of them were arguing with each other. No, my Buddha, no, my teaching, my this. And I go like, wow, and I was just beginning, and I was really confused about it. So one day, I went to this Tibetan Rinpoche. Ken Rinpoche was an old wrinkly man with a little cap on. I still see his face. And I said, Ken Rinpoche, can I ask you some questions? I said, this spiritual journey is new for me. So I said, okay, I'll go to this cafe, and there's these Westerners, all shaved hair, robes, prayer beads, and they're all arguing with each other, and they're all fighting with each other about this and this and this. Is that normal? Is that a spiritual practice? And he looks at me with these kind of naughty eyes, and he goes, how do you spot a real Buddhist? And I go, I have no idea. And he said, you grab a plank, hit them on the head, and see what the reaction is. And I go, wow, this, and he started to laugh about his own joke. And I thought, wow, but it's so profound, right? Yeah. We can say that we are a Christian or a Buddhist or a Zen or a Reiki teacher, or that we're spiritual. But what happens when shit hits the fan? How do we react? Can we react without anger and worry and fear? Can we be grateful for the experience of being kind? That ultimately is a spiritual practice. I always say it's not about feeling energy. If you want to feel energy, stick your finger in the PowerPoint, and don't do this at home. But at least, you don't have to pay anything for it. It's free. If you want to see colors, it's great. You grab a metal bar and you hit your head a few times. Again, don't try this at home, but you see wonderful colors, maybe for days. And if you keep hitting, you see the white light. Also, don't try this at home. But it's not that difficult. You don't have to spend a lot of money for it or a lot of practice. But to actually be kind and compassionate, that is the key point. And if we look at all these spiritual practices, that's all what they were talking about.
Well, that is such a funny image of Westerners with shaved heads arguing about the right way to the spiritual competitiveness. It's like a sports team.
Yeah, that was it. Spiritual competitiveness. Yeah.
Wow. I win. I got to God first.
That's it.
Oh, that's so ridiculous. But you can see why humans, the ego, would want that. It's like,
absolutely.
I'm here and you're not. I win.
Yeah. But you see it these days so much, no matter if it's yoga or the system of Reiki, we see that competitive. And I go like, man, it's not about it. It's about being kind. It's actually so simple that we make it difficult.
I used to tell people I was a black belt in yoga. just to see really you're that advanced. Oh yeah.
No, I love it. But people go for it, right? It's quite
they did. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I just I never know what I'm going to get when I meet folks on this podcast, and this was an absolute delight to meet you and to talk nice about meeting. This. Yeah, I hope you come to LA and I get to meet you in person sometime, and we can get together and not party. That would be good.
we can do a party without the alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. That would be fun. And do you have a website people can find you?
Yeah, it's www is normally ihreiki.com. So IH
What does that mean?
Reiki.com. International House of Reiki.
Oh, okay. ihreiki.com. And that's how you can find Frans Stiene.
That's it. Right?
I did it. I'm so proud of myself. And now I speak Dutch. How do you say, I don't know, goodbye, and it's been wonderful talking to you in Dutch. Can you say that for me? Or you don't
Tot ziens. Het was erg leuk om met jou te praten.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you. I love talking to you. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Bob. Great for inviting me, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, very good.
Much appreciation for you folks listening into The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and the Exploding Human Facebook page. I want to thank Frans Stiene one more time for being a fabulous guest, and please check him out at ihreiki.com. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.